The Sony ZV1 is going to be announced on May 26th, and the specs for the Sony ZV1 have leaked, and these apparently are the official specs. So let's take a look and explain what these specs are for the Sony ZV1, and is this going to be the vlogging camera, because there's some insane specs in here. Let's get into it. Let's run through the specs for the Sony ZV1, and I'm going to explain kind of in layman's terms what these mean as well, because this is geared at the vlogging community, and I get the feeling it's kind of geared at getting people into that Sony ecosphere and getting them a start in making videos. First up is the sensor. It's a 20.1 megapixel CMOS stacked sensor, and basically what that means is the way Sony stack their sensors together, it's going to be super fast, and that enables some very cool features, and one of those is going to blow people's mind, especially if you've never heard of it, but I'll get into that momentarily. Next up, it'll shoot 4K video. So that's 3840 by 2160. So basically, it's more pixels on the screen. 4K might be a buzzword for some of you, but trust me, when you're shooting stuff in 4K, it gives you that extra option in post-production to zoom in or crop in a little bit, and you're not going to lose any quality. The downside of shooting in 4K though is you're going to go through memory cards like no tomorrow because it uses a lot of space. The next spec on the Sony ZV1 is the lens. It's an f1.8 lens, which means it's going to be fairly fast, and that means it's going to be good in low light, and 1.8 means that you're going to be able to get some little bit of creamy-ish bokeh, that blurry background, when you're using f1.8. It's a 24 to 70 millimeter lens. Now what does that mean is basically it's a zoom lens, and the 24 mm means how wide the shot is. Now a lot of people are saying 24 millimeters is not wide enough for vlogging. Well, let me show you. This is at 24 millimeters, and once you have your handheld fairly out, or maybe you have it on a little bit of a selfie stick or something like that, or a little handheld tripod, then it works, okay? Yeah, it's not as wide as you'd like it to be, but by no means is it too tight. I've shot on the Sony RX100 Mark V for a long time at 24 millimeters, and it works perfectly well. Next up in the specs in the Sony ZV1, it's got an articulated screen, which means it's going to flip out as opposed to flip up, which has been the norm in a lot of the RX100 series and a lot of the Sony Alpha series where the screen does flip up. Doesn't matter if it flips up or flips out. I've got another video explaining why that is, and there's a link to that right up here somewhere, and there's also a link in the description. But trust me, it doesn't matter what way the screen flips. The Sony ZV1 is also going to have something brand new, and that's a tally light, probably seen on a lot of high-end cameras. And what the hell is a tally light, I hear you ask? A tally light is basically a red light that flashes on and off when you're recording. Simple. And it's featured in all of the Sony stuff about the Sony ZV1 so far. That red light is there, and that's going to blink. Here's an interesting one. It's got a Directional 3 capsule microphone, which Sony are saying is a really, really good mic. And this is a first, I think, for any kind of camera manufacturer, that this is actually coming with a wind muff that you're going to stick on. Now, what's a wind muff? It's also known as a dead cat. Basically, it's a piece of fur that sticks over the microphone and it filters out the wind. Doesn't filter it out completely, but it can make a good difference to it. If the built-in mic isn't good enough for you, and keep in mind a lot of the Sony mics are really, really good, it's also got an inbuilt mic jack, which means you can plug in an external mic in, which is a huge, huge plus. Remember how I spoke about that kind of CMOS, that stacked sensor, that the way Sony does it, that allows for some really cool stuff, so it reads the data really, really quickly and all of that. However, there's one thing in it that it allows you this insane autofocus. Sony generally has some of the best autofocus in the world, and the Eye Autofocus is absolutely insanely good because it'll lock onto your eye and then it will follow your eye, and then using AI and all kind of Skynet robots, if it loses your eye for whatever reason, it'll track your head. It's incredibly fast, it's incredibly accurate, and it's something that's in a small size camera. It's a no-brainer on the focus level alone. The Sony ZV1 has probably what I would call a couple of gimmicks. One of them is it will smooth out your wrinkles, and it's also got an AI algorithm that's going to look at the auto exposure around your face, which means it's always going to look to properly expose your face, so it's never going to be too dark or too bright. Another gimmick is a product showcase, which will allow you to hold an object up to the screen like this, see, and it's out of focus. But this product showcase thing will allow the camera to focus perfectly on your thing. Whatever you're holding up. That sounded wrong. Based off the last video, I got an email last night kind of saying, hey, have you seen this on Nokashita, which is a Japanese Twitter thing, and then Sony Alpha Rumors ran it as well. So this is a leaked piece of text. It reads well, but the last kind of paragraph is a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't seem to tie in with the rest of it, and that's predominantly around the gimmicks, what I'm calling as gimmicks. And if these specs are to be believed, which I think it does kind of make sense that they would use the same sensor that's kind of in the RX100 line, similar lens, it's going back to the original kind of 1.8 fast lens. This is really shaping up to be a pretty decent camera. There's one or two caveats that I will say that I don't know. That's the battery. Given the size of the camera and looking at what we can see, it's probably going to use the RX100 line of batteries, which to be fair are not really good. So you're probably going to have to carry a bunch of them around with you. But let's kind of hold tough here and let's see what happens with that. I could be completely wrong, but I can't see them squeezing something like a Z100 battery in there unless they've invented a brand new battery, which I can't see happening either. But let's hold tough on that. And the big thing here for, I guess, everybody, and depending on where this has been geared at, this camera, is it going to be geared at an entry-level vlogging? Is it going to be kind of geared at, you know, people who are vlogging for a while? Is it going to be the price point? The price point is going to signify whether this thing is going to sell or not. The RX100 series, which is about as close as I can compare the Sony ZV1 to, are really expensive. For a brand new one, we're talking $1,000 plus. I don't think that's going to be, oh, let's just grab that camera. If Sony bring this to like $500-600 in or around, this is going to be, you know, I won't say a no-brainer, but I gotta tell you, my interest is really kind of peaked on this. Sony, I know I'm talking about leaked stuff, but you're like, okay, this guy's gone on a list, we will never give him anything. I would love to review it. I think if you're starting off in vlogging, if you are a vlogger, this could possibly be a good camera for you, but battery life is always going to be a problem. Speaking of Sony battery life, the Z100 batteries are absolutely insane. In the next couple of days, I got a video testing out the Z100 official Sony battery versus some of the cheaper knockoff batteries. And man, let me tell you, the results are absolutely insane. That's the next video. Speaking of next videos, if you're starting about vlogging, there is a video around here that will blow your mind. It's got some of the best tips in the world for learning how to vlog. Check that out. I'll see you on the next video. And until then, don't stop fighting for yourself.